Hello and welcome back, Particle People. Today I want to talk about Commander some more because honestly I've been playing it way too much, and today we're going to be tackling the hardest, most controversial topic, the bracket system. Before we dive in, I would like to disclose that I am pro-bracket system, but I do think it is a Herculean task which is almost impossible to handle correctly. Not only have I seen tons of Reddit posts complaining about how crappy the bracket system is and how the previous system was better, which we're going to get into in a moment, but YouTube is filled with videos just berating the system and calling it worthless. So let's just actually take a look at that and the type of person who may have these beliefs. Before we delve into some of the critiques of the system, let's delve into the actual brackets themselves. That way we know what we're covering here. Starting with bracket 1, we have the ultra casual. This means that this deck is below a pre-con level. It's supposed to be fun and something you just made because you love the cards in it. Bracket 2 is supposed to be around the average strength of a current pre-constructed deck. Take a pre-constructed out of a box, you play it, that's what we're looking for, that's the power level. Bracket 3 is going to be the upgraded deck, which means it's going to be like a precon, but you took out a lot of the slower pieces to get that value engine in there, and now you've got some tutors as well as some game changers. Moving to the fourth bracket, now we're into the crazy territory. It is no holds barred. You can make it as insane as you want to. Put in your favorite $100 cards, ain't nobody gonna say anything as long as it's not banned. And finally, we're about to lose a whole bunch of people and they're gonna call the list stupid and the brackets bad because CEDH has roughly the same idea where no holds are barred, played whatever you want, but you'll notice the text on the top has changed because the mentality of that way of playing is different. And let me explain. Everybody on the internet has been breaking down the restrictions and limitations for the bracket system this entire time without taking the actual bracket system into consideration. Most people who look at this list go right to the restrictions and then try to say, well, my deck falls in here because of these restrictions of X, Y, and Z. For a visual demonstration, this is how the list is being treated online, and that could not be further from the idea. It doesn't make you a tactical genius to be able to make a deck that fits inside of the rule set of Core 2 that's not a Core 2 deck. Does that make sense? Beating up people playing precons with your super optimized deck is against the entire spirit of the game. And if you do approach a table and you play one of your optimized decks into precons, most people are going to feel
diddled by the sweatiest, most bitchless, unemployed creatures this planet has ever seen.
And don't get me wrong, this bracket system has problems. Obviously, it's a beta system, so let's just talk about the real two problems that are most apparent. The first one is that this is a self-policing guide. You have to have players that are honest enough to say, yeah, my deck plays like a 2 or plays like a 3. And we've seen how that works with the previous system of everyone calling their deck a 7. And that same issue is an issue in itself because it kind of has to be a self-policing system. Commander in recent years is how a lot of people get into Magic the Gathering because it is so new player friendly. And with that new player friendliness, it's very hard to gauge power levels of every single card in the game on a quick view. In Standard, everyone is trying to win and they're playing effectively to their deck's best possibilities and they're only trying to up the power. But Commander has a bit of a different problem. And that is one of the things that makes Commander great, is Commander's typically a social gathering type of idea. You want to have a good time with funny interactions with your friends rather than trying to beat the crap out of them on turn 3. So if you were to fully monitor and try to break down power levels within decks, you'd have to do something absurd like making power level points for every single card in the game and then having a deck have that entire total of points labeled onto it. However, that is another task that no one's going to want to do because this is supposed to be casual. And yes, I understand some people play Commander in a non-casual format, but for most people it's a casual experience. Which leads us to the problem, is the amount of effort it would take to properly define power levels on every single Commander deck is way too much effort for a casual format. However, if you apply the bracket system in a way where you're being honest with what your deck is trying to do and what type of game you personally are trying to have with that deck, I think that we can do a lot better. Let's just take a look at the bracket system, but inverse the way that people are looking at it really quickly. Let me do a tiny bit of Photoshop magic quick. Perfect. Let me introduce to you my solution. I call them the Little Jimmy brackets. Now, Little Jimmy brackets, you may be seeing the smiley faces here and realize they get pretty sad pretty quickly, but those aren't your smiley faces. Those are Little Jimmy's. You see, Jimmy here walked into the local game shop and purchased his first Final Fantasy Commander set, and he is so excited to play with his iconic IP with some new friends. And he's trying to make some new friends so he might come back and play every now and then. Now, he's not really sure about a lot when it comes to Commander or Magic in general. This is going to be his onboarding moment, so he might get into Magic from this point, but you as a more seasoned player may have a huge impact here on what kind of experience he has and what he expects for the future. Now, obviously, you like Magic the Gathering and I like Magic the Gathering, and we really want Jimmy to enjoy it too, because the more people who play it, the more people we get to play with, the better the game does, the longer it's going to stick around, and the more stuff for us to have in the future, right? So if you're going to play with Little Jimmy and you want him to have a good time, you can use this guide to understand what would be a good experience for a new player. You could do bracket 1. you're going to give Jimmy a good chance to win as long as he reads his cards and understands what's happening. Maybe that'll be a great experience for him. Or maybe you want to go a little more even on power and do something in tier 2. Or maybe gameplay like that just doesn't excite you, but you still want to see if Jimmy is okay with it, and you let him know ahead of time you want to use a deck that's more powerful than his. And you can pull out this chart and show him exactly how much pain he'd go through if he decides to play with you. He'll be able to respectfully decline, but there's no reason to build a deck which is hyper optimized, but you squeezed it into 2 to beat up on players who don't know what's happening or just wanted a casual game. The biggest issue with the bracket system is how inclined Magic players tend to be with trying to piss on you and then tell you it's raining. I understand for some people it's really fun to explore the limitations of a bracket system like this and see what you can get into lower tiers, but this isn't exactly a ranked system and you get nothing for ruining the experience of other people. You can just chill and try to have a game that's on a similar power level to other people. That way you can all enjoy the game together and have that, social experience, that aspect of Commander that everybody loves instead of being a little prick about it. But hey, that's just me. And that's not to say you're not going to play games with a bracket 2 deck that just pop off way too hard. Trust me, I had a similar experience recently. I have a deck that is a solid 2 and gets stomped out all the time, but I just so happen to have all the cards to go crazy. I ramped and it wasn't fun for me at that point either. I don't know about you, but I think that most Magic players in the Commander area, especially in the lower brackets, are just looking for a good social experience, not so much trying to win so desperately. If you guys all want to win and you guys are all hyper fixated on having a more competitive game, just do exactly that, but stop trying to cheat the system and squeeze your way into a bracket 2 to play against weaker opponents. It's just really sad. There's a really good chance this video pissed at least a few people off, and I'm gonna have some comments about how I'm a butthead or whatever. Please leave those comments below. I love them even when they are negative, but self-policing really is something that's important to a community like this, and I think that if you can hold yourself accountable, which is something people hate to do, we can all have a lot better Magic games together. Stop trying to cheat the system. You're not the main character. Everybody wants to have a good time. That video became more preachy than I intended. However, I did just want to loop back and say thank you to everyone who interacted with my previous Magic video and the suggestions for my Morph deck. Perfect. Thank you very much. I have actually upgraded the deck since then. It's even funnier. Not sure how I got Morphodon instead of Morophon out of that, but I'm just going to continue to call it Morphodon until the day I die now because he is the Don of Morphin. Although, thank you again for watching the video, especially if you got to this point. Please leave your comments and likes on the video, and I'm going to go ahead and say this has been Sand for Days. I'm Course, and I get everywhere. Bye-bye now.